Good morning, everyone. We'll wait until all the participants get loaded into the Zoom. Just watching the numbers go up. Hope everyone is doing well. We'll give it just about a minute to get everybody on the Zoom. In the chat is the agenda and the schedule. If you guys want to take a second while everybody's joining the meeting. All right. I think we're close to having everybody in the meeting. So we'll go ahead and get started. Good morning, and thank you for joining us for our monthly meeting. I am Brooke Murray. You can tell Tom Pace was going to be here today to present, but he is not able to join us. So I am here and I'm going to moderate the meeting for today. If you're a first-time attendee or new member, please introduce yourself in the chat box. We'd really like to get to know you. All the attendees are muted, and we ask that you utilize the chat box for questions. Please make sure you are messaging all the panelists and attendees when you do put anything in the chat box for questions. And as a reminder, please refrain from marketing in the chat box. So we will go ahead and get started. Next slide, please. And we will get started with Brian LePask. He's going to do the update from OPSC.
Thanks, Brooke. Good morning, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. Pretty light meeting this evening at the SAB, so I think it's going to be a quick one. It's always fun to take over under on the number of minutes, but it's probably going to be a pretty short meeting tonight, is my guess. I just have a few brief updates to share with everybody today. We've been continuing our stakeholder meetings, the series that we're doing for Prop 2 implementation. If you've been following, you know that there's also some other stuff we've been working on. It's not really Prop 2 related, but because because we're opening up the regulations and doing so many changes to them, we had some other things on our, we like to call it our parking lot list of items that we wanted to do some enhancements or provide some clarifying language to. So we've been doing a little bit of that as well, but primarily it's been the Prop 2 items. There's 14 or 15 topics that we've been advancing on that. This month, on April 3rd, we discussed supplemental grants for three different new features of our program: 75-year-old building replacement, minimum essential facilities, and transitional kindergarten classrooms. Again, those are supplemental grants as part of a larger modernization project. We're pretty close to having our regulations ready for those. We presented regulations and we're still kind of fine tuning them. We didn't really get a lot of feedback from our April 3rd meeting, a little bit, but not a lot. And so that tells us that everybody they saw what they expected to see or close to it. And I think we're going to be touching on maybe two or three of those, maybe two, maybe all three of them, maybe another light touch on them, just a few little tweaks to get those regulations just right. That we'll be presenting, but then we're going to be taking the regulations to the SAB. So we're very excited for the progress on those. It's nice to see that. I'll talk about it in a few minutes, but we're seeing regulations going already for Prop 2 related items, which is, we're so happy to see that. We're making a lot of progress on them, and so we're very pleased with our progress on all those. On April 10th, we discussed the interim housing and natural disaster assistance grants, as well as a 5-year master plan. Pardon me. We did present regulations at that meeting on April 10th for the disaster relief, but we didn't present regulations yet for master plans. That's a little bit more complex, I'd say. We're still looking for feedback from that meeting. I think you have the rest of this week to send that information if you have feedback on it. We've gotten a little bit of it so far, not too much. Again, I take that as a good sign that regulations are meeting all of your expectations. We do plan on continuing the master plan topic, and we're going to be bringing back regulations on that to a future meeting. We have gotten a lot of interest in that topic, as you might guess, and we're continuing to make refinements to that, and we look forward to presenting you with what we think the regulations should say coming up pretty soon here. Then finally, April 17th, just last week, we advanced our progress on the small size school district program and energy efficiency. We had some guests with us that day from Department of Education and State Architect's Office. Thank you to those agencies for your continued support and collaboration. We presented there's some unique issues with those, I'd say, not really issues, but just some details that we're working through. And so having that assistance from Department of Ed and Ida and her group have been really wonderful. We haven't presented regulations on those topics yet, but we're going to be doing that shortly as well. And just an overall, I wanted to say thank you to everybody who's taken the time to participate in those meetings or taken the time to read the agenda items or watch the recordings on YouTube. Also, those of you that have been thoughtful enough to take time to send us comments and feedback, it's tremendously helpful for us to get all that information and the different perspectives on these new features. We wouldn't be able to make great programs without everybody's input. So we really value that collaboration and teamwork, and I just wanted to make sure and to thank everybody for that. Speaking of regulations, at the March meeting last month, at the State Allocation Board, we had regulations approved for a few of what I would call more straightforward changes from Prop 2. They were really, very prescriptive in statute, and we were able to get those done pretty quickly. Those were related to financial hardship changes, modernization for schools that are on military installations, new construction eligibility lock for small school districts, and then changes to eligible expenditures. Those are now on track in the rulemaking process with the Office of Administrative Law, and they'll be active once that process is complete. So we're stoked to be able to get those done and on their way, and we'll have more coming very soon that we can get on that same track. So we're making a lot of progress, which is really great. In today's SAB agenda, we have just a couple action items for the board. The first one is providing about $14.2 million in priority funding apportionments for 4 charter school projects. We expect to see a lot more activity in the priority funding apportionment area in the fall for SFP. If you have an unfunded approval currently, or you're getting one at tonight's board, we have a priority funding certification round that opens on May 14th and closes on June 12th. Those projects will be eligible for an apportionment in the fall of this year when we have a bond sale, probably going to be around August, September, October, somewhere in that neighborhood. So looking forward to getting that rolling again. And then also today, the last action item we have, the board is going to establish the dates and the parameters for the next Career Technical Education Facilities Program filing round. I think Rebecca had mentioned it in her EO statement last month or in February that we'd be recommending applicants send their CDE grant applications to CDE for scoring by December 1st of this year. So December 1st, 2025. And then those applications will be due to OPSC for funding consideration by June 30th of 2026, by next June. We're still recommending those dates in this item. We're also asking the board if they'd like to do 2 $300 million funding rounds or 1 $600 million filing round, if they want to do 2 rounds or 1 round with the Prop 2 funding that we have for that program. Our regulations call for the board to take action on those funding rounds, and so that's what this item is all about today. That's all for the board. We're going to be announcing more stakeholder meetings soon. Our plan is to continue them as frequently as we're able to. We have to take in the feedback, turn those items around, advance the topics, and write regulations, and those things take time, especially for the programs that we're looking at. There's a lot to them, and so they do take some time to sort out and make sure that we're doing things correctly. But we've been able to take each topic back with about 6 to 8 weeks in between. We spend about 2 weeks collecting feedback, and then we spend another couple of weeks kind of formulating and then we get the items together and get them out about a week prior to actually having the meeting. So it's an aggressive timeline, but we're doing the best we can to keep them current and not wait too long in between so that people don't forget the details. So we're doing those as quickly as possible, and we still are doing our normal 1.5 billion per year processing. We have our SAB meetings, and then working in the stakeholder meeting topics. We really turn the heat up on everybody in the short term, but we're really glad for the progress that we're making, so that things can kind of, I'd say, maybe normalize a little bit more. So we're very much pleased with the progress we've made, and all of you have been so helpful in it. So thank you again for all the interest that you've all shown in our program. Lastly, we've been working really hard on an OPSC online user guide for about the last year, or maybe even a little bit more than that. We already have one available, but there's been a lot of changes to OPSC Online since we published that. So we've been working on that. We're going to be sending that out in the near future for testing. It's part of our strategic planning as a organization, and we're pushing towards making OPSC Online a lot more prominent. And so part of that is having a proper user guide. That's really useful, very helpful to any user. And like I said, we've spent a lot of time on that. It's several hundred pages, and we've really worked hard to make sure that we have a good user guide for you to use. The idea is that if you've never gone through one of those workflows, or if you've never submitted an application in OPSC Online before, you'd be able to open up this guide and do it relatively easily. So if you're interested in helping us with the testing, or you'd like to look at the guide and give us some feedback, please get in touch with me. I'm going to be reaching out to lots of districts and stakeholders to ask them to do testing. If that's something that you'd like to participate in, though, please contact me, and I can make sure that you're involved. We're going to be doing 3 rounds of testing over the next several months. So it's something that'll be going on for a little while, probably the next about 5 to 6 months. So again, if that's something you're interested in, please let me know. Otherwise, you might be getting a phone call or an email from me asking for your help. So appreciate that very much. I can answer any questions there might be, but that's my update for today.
Right, great. Thank you, Brian. The stakeholder meetings, I've attended several of them, and they have been really interactive with a lot of questions and a lot of great content. There is a question in the chat box. Is it too late to submit feedback for the April 3rd stakeholder meeting?
No, I mean, it's a little late. We usually like it within the first 2 weeks so that we can turn it back around in that next item. But if you have something, please send it in. We'll do our best to get it integrated.
Wonderful, thank you. Anybody else with any questions? Just monitor the chat box for a second. Otherwise, we will move on to our next presenter, which will be Ida Claire from the State Architect. And Ida, are you there?
I am. There you go. Okay. I was waiting for that video to pop up. Let me share my screen. Can you release the share, please, Brooke?
I'll give you access, just 1 second.
Okay. Hopefully everyone can see that okay. All right. Good morning, everyone. Happy Wednesday. We're in the middle of the week, and it's been a busy week for us. Just a quick note, we are hiring for any of you architects or engineers out there. DSA does have available positions in all 4 offices. We have been continuously busy. We have about 20, close to 2,739 projects received. This is as of Monday, our project submittals. So it does not account for what we received yesterday and today. Our busiest office and number of projects, and also in total construction cost, is San Diego presently. We are at $10.33 billion in construction that we've received in plan approval to date. And this is part of our fiscal year. So this reflects our fiscal year. So since last July 1st, and we still have May and June to get through. So we assume that that will be close to probably a $12 billion year for us in plan review. For April, we've received so far 220 applications for just over $1 billion. And again, April is not done. And this is, of course, what reflects that San Diego is our busiest at the moment. We are still managing our workload through overtime and sharing, but it is likely that we will need to implement our consultant contract soon, especially in San Diego, because all our other offices are also quite busy. As I stated, project submittals for April are over $1 billion. And looking ahead to May, we are at 835 million, but that will likely go up. Even though it does reflect projects received in the next 4 weeks, that is just still on the cusp of our 6-week look ahead. So there may be some that still come in. A little bit about 2025 submittals. We had 42 billion in state and local bonds passed in 2024. There is a code change coming January 1st, 2026. Our administrative code provisions are in effect, and I will cover those in a minute, and that's for the 2025 administrative code. That's the only section of Title 24, 2025 Title 24 that takes effect 30 days after adoption, which was our adoption meeting was in February. We will be accepting submittals to the 2025 California Building Standards Code beginning December 1st, 2025. Just a reminder that LA schools affected by fire will have priority processing, and the PC projects that are pre-approved under the 2022 code will be in effect through June 30th, 2026, and eligible to be included in your projects. Just a quick reminder, IRA 22 thresholds. The exemption threshold is raised to $130,398 for all disciplines. The exemption is raised to $293,397 when there is no structural work, project contains no access compliance work, project contains no work that triggers path of travel improvements, and the project meets all fire and life safety standards. And of course, that exemption is only applicable to alterations to DSA certified structures. Evaluation threshold's been updated to $203,611. And just a reminder that we have accessibility resources on our website under the tab Resources, Access Compliance Reference Materials, including an updated electric vehicle charging station webinar. Just a reminder, pre-application meetings are the best way to get your problem solved early and to meet with DSA. So we encourage you to always opt for a pre-application meeting for your project. A little bit about rulemaking updates. Here is the California Administrative Code express terms. Just to clean up under AB 358 Addis, which was passed by the legislature in 2023, removes community college student housing from DSA review. Of course, that we still will take those projects upon request. It just relieved our authority for them. So you can opt to go to the locals, or you can come to us. I know that this is a K-12 audience, so probably not pertaining to you too much. Whoops, sorry, let me go back. There is a clarification, an exception that reconstruction to repair damage is not caused by natural disasters is permitted within 50 feet of a trace fault. We've had some projects that are near a fault and they needed to repair, and the code was a little vague on that. So that's just a clarifying item. Refunds, we are clarifying refunds if DSA voids an application or an increment. 30% of the structural portion will be sent back to the district. For increments where review has not commenced, we will refund 100% of the structural portion. For withdrawal of application or increments, that means client withdrawal or district withdrawal, 100% of the refund if the review has not commenced. If review has commenced, refund of 30% of structural portion, which is what we reserve for construction work, our DSA's work in construction. And then, of course, for voided or withdrawn applications or increments, no refund where only the minimum fee has been paid. The other two items that are in effect now that were part of the California Administrative Code cleanup is project inspector certification. All the requirements for certification have been moved into Article 10 in the Administrative Code, and laboratory acceptance program in Article 11, and that just cleans up requirements for grounds for disciplinary action and clarifies the process of how to become a project inspector or an accepted laboratory under DSA. Just a reminder that effective January 1st, 2026, we do have a new section in Title 24. That's Part 7, and it's the 2025 Wildland Urban Interface Code. So that's coming January 1st. We are now in our 2025 intervening code adoption cycle. The work that we're doing now, obviously, you know, we're constantly in rulemaking. The work we're doing now is our pre-cycle work for standards that will be in effect July 1st, 2027. Our work, this is where we are in our pre-cycle, is at the very beginning of what we call our cigar, and it's this orange piece right at the beginning. We will be working on requirements for access, bringing in Section 504 requirements for for housing, not student housing, for public housing, which will affect student housing and workforce housing. And that's just clarifying certain requirements. And that helps us to align with federal law. With regard to green building, we are focusing again on embodied carbon. The standards that became in effect last July 1st were created 18 months earlier than that. And so we are now at, so technically 3 years ago almost. And so we're at that 3-year point where we are tweaking the requirements a little bit. So that will be coming. We have reconvened the Cal Green Carbon Reduction Collaborative to discuss those proposals, and our first meeting was March 20th. If you sign up for DSA's emails, especially related to sustainability, architects and engineers, or even school districts, you will receive notice of the Cal Green Carbon Reduction Collaborative in case you wanted to participate. Again, with our partners, we do have embodied carbon resources, our partners at California Energy Code. ACE has this website, and there's a link to it there. And then, of course, other partner resources are AIA California with Cal Green checklists. And these are our partner resources that are assisting with the embodied carbon efforts in Cal Green that apply to all non-res, but also public schools and community colleges. And then this is a little bit of our work that we've been doing with our sister agencies. Obviously, I just mentioned the Cal Green Carbon Reduction Collaborative with the Building Standards Commission. And then we are working with the Energy Commission to discuss the 2028 California Energy Amendments to right-size their models and assist with issues we're seeing with enforcement of the standards. Again, I encourage you to participate and reach out for your concerns that have come up since the 2022 code on application of the energy code to your sites specifically. And then DSA is part of working with the California Air Resources Board on the requirements of AB 2446 and AB 43, which requires the building sector to achieve a 40% net greenhouse gas reduction no later than 2035. So we're working with them on that. A little bit more about program updates. We do have some vacancies on our public school construction collaborative. These are the vacancies that are available. If you're interested, again, resources, public school construction collaborative, and then you can click on become a member of the PSCC and find an application. If you're already on our mailing list, you should have received notice on this, but I'm letting you know we do have 3 openings. And that's because every 3 years, the openings occur. And so we do want to see that turnover so we get broad-based participation. Just a reminder, workforce and student housing on PL or policy 2401. Again, these projects are not required to come to DSA, but we will take them for review. Obviously, if they're specifically on a campus, it's beneficial for you to come to DSA because they will be field act structures and you wouldn't have to physically separate them as required by the ed code. But you can go to local jurisdiction if you choose for the workforce housing, obviously. BU 24-3 green schoolyards. This is the requirements for 20% path of travel improvement limitations for green schoolyard projects. So I know that we're seeing a lot of green schoolyard projects coming to us. It's very important that you read this bulletin. Again, there cannot be any structures as part of this green schoolyard project. Our document update for accessibility, I've already reported on this, but just a reminder for path of travel improvements. And here are the forms, our procedure to request a finding of unreasonable hardship, and the 2 forms, the 1 RAH, and then the RTI1, which is for request for technical infeasibility. This is our bulletin 2401 regarding the existing building code fire life safety provisions, which were unintentionally not adopted by the fire marshal. So we are holding off on any of those requirements. Basically, compliance with the California Building Code is what we're going to require, but I will let you know that as of January 1st of next year, this will change because the state fire marshal did clean up their rulemaking to clarify the application of the work area compliance method and the performance compliance method. So we'll probably be revising this information as we close into the end of the year. Bulletin 24-4 classroom locks. Again, DSA is not checking for this because we haven't heard that there's been any appropriation. So if there has, you can let me know. But until then, if you are including them in your project, in the interior locks, this is for security purposes. We will review for them, but we are not requiring them to be provided because the law had anticipated that there would be an appropriation before it would be required. Site safety plan. This is information. This has been required for submittals after February 1st, 2025. Again, this is not something DSA checks, but we will see that you do have a plan in place. In other words, we're not going to review the plan, but we will check to see that you have a plan in place. Okay, just a reminder on emergency planning and preparedness. There are some links in here. This one is for Cal OES. DSA is ready to assist in an emergency, specifically with rapid assessments after we've received mission tasks from Cal OES. All right, and then of course, just as part of our Getting to Zero, a reminder of the Cal Green mandatory measures. Remember, for sustainability plan review, we do have a Cal Green Code submittal checklist, and you can find that form on our forms, and there's also a link to it on our resources and sustainability plan review page. Of course, here are additional resources for our sustainability education and outreach, and a reminder again of our free training and CEUs on the DSA Academy, which can be found under resources and DSA Academy. And then, of course, if you're not already subscribed to our mailing list, I'll take questions now.
I do not see any questions in the chat box, but wonderful information that you shared, a lot of great things. Going back to the building standards rulemaking, the one chart that you had shown, are we still in that period? You flipped over it quickly. We're still within that period of, just want to check that.
We are, so when you're looking at, we are right at the beginning of this cigar. So it says 125 to 925. This is when we're conducting our initial workshops. We will be continuing that throughout the year, but we do have our proposals for requirements that will be in effect July 1st, 2027, due December of this month. Sorry, December of this year.
Gotcha. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't see any other questions, so I think we will move on. Thank you very much for your presentation.
You're welcome.
And next, we have Rebecca Klein and Ian Padilla will be providing an update on the current legislation and regulatory issues and a maintenance network update. Ian, I think you're going to start.
Yes, thank you, Brooke. And I'm going to lead off. Yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about where we are in the legislative process. Talk about a bill that I think is of interest to a lot of our members. And then I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Rebecca, who's going to talk about a cash-sponsored bill related to the Civic Center Act, some of the workforce housing bills, which are significant this year, and then a bill related to ballot labeling, which is a pretty significant issue. Well, first, before I started in the legislative process, I also wanted to say that the OPSC's Prop 2 implementation process has been, we think, very productive and efficient. Certainly cash and cash staff are participating, but there's opportunities to participate in person, certainly virtually, as well as communicate with the staff and submit letters of recommendation or resources to help them as they develop these regulations. I would say generally, we think there hasn't been too many issues that have caught our eye. We are, like everyone, taking a long look at the master plan, right? Knowing that the devil's in the details, we want to make sure that that works for everyone as well as meets, the statutory requirements. I think Rebecca is going to talk about some concern that we have about the master plan, but I'll let her cover that. But again, just another encouragement to participate in that process if you're able to, both in terms of expressing an opinion or resources, as well as just seeing what's going on as the program is, in some cases, making some major changes. So good stuff there. And again, as OPSC is doing this work, but they are planning to take a lot of these regulations that are done, so to speak, to the board in the middle of the year, June, afterwards, something like that. So a lot of work on the front end. That's what's going on. In terms of the legislative process, this is a good time actually for us to give you an update. Basically, we are nearly through with policy committees in the first house. So there's 2 weeks left, basically, in 2 more policy committee hearings, where a lot of the hard bills are going to be the more difficult ones, right? Early in the year, the easier ones pass. Now we're down to what are the more difficult bills. So the next process is for those bills to go through policy committee, and then they start to be reviewed by the fiscal committee, the appropriations committee, to look at the fiscal impacts. Once that happens, remember, we're moving into getting closer to the early part of May, and in Sacramento, that there's all the focus is on the May revision, the state budget. If you remember, the governor, usually on January 10th or at or around then, proposes in January his initial priorities and his budget. But now that the legislative committees have reviewed this, the governor's proposals, now it gets more serious, and we start to have the May revision budget deliberations. Rebecca will talk a little bit more about the budget process. So one thing we will, as I talk about one bill here, one of the big themes, there's always themes in every legislative session, and they're important because they inform a lot of the legislation, a lot of the dynamics in Sacramento. Two important ones, and they shouldn't be real surprising to anyone this year, and that is affordability, cost of living, things like that. That's a central one, kind of a bipartisan concern, and so that concerns for affordability are really driving a lot of the legislation and the dynamics. As well as, of course, as the LA fires. We've heard some of our state agents talk about elements related to that in state agency regulations. There's pieces in bills, there's parts in the budget. So those two things, again, affordability and the LA fires and I would say risk management more generally are real themes of this year, as well as, you know, there's other ones, crime and safety, housing, and certainly artificial intelligence are other ones. But affordability and the LA fires really affect a lot of the school facilities community as well as more broadly. So, and I would say the affordability piece, a lot of it in the school facilities community, there's a variety of places where that hits, where you can see it. But one of them is energy management and efficiency, all those pieces. So one bill that I'm following for cash is AB 832 by Assemblyman Marisucci. This bill, as introduced, proposed two things: to reinstate the CalShape program. If you remember, it was sunset last year as a result of some concerns about affordability. And so, of course, cash supports that. But it also included a requirement for new standards to be established for school HVAC systems. Cash did not support that. It's not the problem with having standards. We think the current ASHRAE standards are more than sufficient. The whole community, labor, and schools and others use that. CalShape has integrated a lot of the ASHRAE requirements in it. So we don't think that's a really something that we can support. So Cash and the Cash Legislative Advisory Committee took a support if amended position on that. Well, what does that mean? It means we support CalShape, but again, we don't think new standards are necessary. Subsequently, Cash, but not only Cash, expressed some concerns about new standards, labor, other stakeholders, and so that provision was amended out. And so, as a result of that, Cash fully supports the bill and has changed his position to support without a qualification. So that's good news generally. I will say this bill has not been set for committee yet. It's double referred. It has to go to be approved by two policy committees before it goes to the fiscal committee. It's first going to be heard in the Assembly Utilities and Energy Committee. It's having some difficulty. The chair does not want to set the bill and also wants to change the bill from what it is now to a bill that sunsets the entire CalShape program. So while the bill itself, in terms of substance, is in better shape, it's having some difficulty because of the dynamics of the bill. If you recall, CalShape funding is not general funding. It's ratepayer funding controlled primarily by the PUC, and there's always been some concerns and some, frankly, drama over that funding source, and so we're kind of seeing it play out in this bill. So we'll continue to follow the bill very carefully, trying to support CalShape, but we'll see how this ultimately ends up. This has been kind of an issue for a good 2 or 3 years, going back and forth here. So keep your ear to the ground on this one. But we should know a little bit more in a few weeks. I'm going to switch quickly to the Cash Maintenance Network. Of course, AB 832 is a central concern for maintenance folks because of the concerns for air quality and all of those pieces, CalShape and so on. But also, I wanted to remind folks, we've had some questions about from our maintenance network members about wanting to get the electronic form for the facility inspection tool from the Office of Public School Construction. If you remember, and Cash did post an update on this on March 4th, OPSC announced that that is not available as of March 13th, 2025 on the Cash website, or on the OPSC Cash website. OPSC does have it in Adobe, PDF, and Microsoft Excel form, so you can get it, but it's not available like it used to. It's a technical issue. It's not that they're holding back the information or something like that. Their longer term plan is to integrate this form into their broader sets of OPSC forms. But right now, again, as of the middle of March, what's been available is not available. You have to go directly to OPSC staff and they can get you what you need. They're recommending on the OPSC communications at dgs.ca.gov if that's an issue for you. So with that, I'm going to make sure I didn't forget anything. I'll come back for a school energy update, but I'm going to turn it over to Rebecca Curley right now for the rest of our update. Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. Hi, everybody. I'll give a quick update on where we are with the budget and then talk about a few pieces of legislation, as Ian mentioned. So right now, the legislature is working on reviewing the governor's January budget proposals, and they're working towards the May revision. So in the middle of May, the governor will update his budget based on the information that we receive about tax receipts from the April filing deadline and other economic updates. June 15th is the deadline for the legislature to pass a budget bill. We expect they're going to do that because they need to do that in order to get paid. Just a quick note that revenues are coming in above projections for 24-25. Strong April numbers from the 2024 tax year above the projections that were in the 24-25 budget. But we're still being cautioned by policymakers and their staff to prepare for 25-26 to be uncertain, for us not to know what the revenue picture will look like because of changes in federal policies related to tariffs and other things. We just don't know what type of impact that will ultimately have on taxpayers here in California. So we're all being cautioned just to understand that this is going to be a big question mark of a budget as we go into the final days of negotiation. As far as our school facilities items, just wanted to remind you that there is $1.5 billion in bond sales planned for 25-26 for Prop 2 and the school facility program. So that's exciting. Our executive officer of OPSC, Rebecca Kirk, in budget subcommittee recently referred to this as going back to the historic norm. So they're planning to do about that much, probably moving forward. There's also a proposal for additional staff at OPSC to help support the processing of applications. So in 25-26 alone, $12.2 million additional dollars to help support those staff, and over 5 years, $59.5 million. So as this proposal is going through the budget process, so far no pushback from legislators because those positions are funded by the bond. Now, if they were funded by another funding source, if it was general fund or Prop 98 money, it'd probably be a more difficult conversation. But because those are funded by the bond and are part of implementing Prop 2, legislators seem comfortable with the way that that conversation is going. So we'll keep watching that. We'll report to you once the May revision comes out to give you an update on any of the items that might be material to school facilities. And then switching gears a little bit on legislation, Ian mentioned that we do have a cash-sponsored bill this year. Our colleague Nancy is doing great work on this. It is AB 503 Gonzalez, and it is a bill that would bring back the ability for schools to charge for capital costs under the Civic Center Act. So when you've got community groups that come in to use those facilities, you can charge them a fee for maintenance, repair, restoration, refurbishment. That actually expired at the end of last year, and I believe that that was probably unintentional. No nefarious reason that it expired, just kind of chasing after sunsets and trying to keep after them. So far, the bill is doing well in the legislative process. It has passed. It was passed by the Assembly Education Committee. We want to thank our chair of the Cash Legislative Advisory Committee, Frank Camarda, for being willing to be there to testify in support of AB 503. Ultimately wasn't needed because it had unanimous support in that committee and was able to move through on consent. So that was exciting. And now it is positioned on the consent calendar in the full assembly. So did not need to go to the Appropriations Committee, is moving more quickly through the legislative process than a typical bill. So that's exciting. The bill does have an urgency clause in it. So if it is passed by both houses of the legislature and signed by the governor, it'll go into effect immediately rather than waiting until January 1 of 2026, which would be the standard if it did not have the urgency clause. So we'll keep you posted on that. And thank you to those of you who have submitted letters in support of that bill. Ian mentioned affordability. He also mentioned housing issues in California. This is certainly something that our legislators are looking at in relation to schools. I know there's been a lot of buzz about workforce housing and utilizing school land in order to build, to try and do maybe low to moderate income housing for your workforce, for teachers, for others. There are a couple of bills that have been introduced in this space because of the tremendous interest on housing and affordability here in California. So just wanted to raise those for you. Cash does not have a formal position on any of these bills, but just want you to be aware that this conversation is taking place. First, our superintendent of public instruction is sponsoring a bill that's moving through the process. It's SB 502 Argwin. This would allow schools to use an existing pot of money that is for home building funds in order to do pre-development work. So think planning, think feasibility studies, those types of things to see if you've got a viable project. And specifically for low to moderate income housing on your school sites, it would set aside 5% of that fund to create a zero interest revolving loan fund for these pre-development activities. Another couple of bills are sponsored by the California School Boards Association. The first is AB 1021 WICS. This is going back and updating a bill from 2022, which was called AB 2295. That bill did a few things, but one of the things it did was provide some narrow local zoning exemptions and modifications for workforce housing projects at LEAs. And so what AB 1021 is doing is it's going back and kind of reopening some of those, trying to make it a little bit more helpful of a tool, as no districts have been able to use AB 2295 yet to move forward with workforce housing. And that bill is actually up in Assembly Local Government today, I believe. And then AB 1381 Maritsuchi is being authored by the author of our bond, Proposition 2. This is similar to SB 502, the SPI's bill, but what it's doing is it's creating a revolving loan fund for educational workforce housing pre-development efforts, and has a little bit more specificity in there about the size of the loans and what they'd be used for. So those are all moving through the legislative process, trying to crack that nut and help support the state's efforts on housing affordability. Last bill I want to mention is AB 699. This is the local ballot label bill. This is an effort that Cash has been supporting for many years now. It's related to the language that is on the 75 words on your ballot label itself when voters are filling in that little bubble to vote yes or no on a ballot measure, and specifically a local bond. Changes that were made in 2017 through AB 195 make it more difficult for schools to pass local bonds because of confusing information that now has to be provided related to the rate of the tax, the duration, and the amount that you expect to receive annually. Those three pieces of information make a lot of sense for flat rate taxes, think of sales tax, but they don't make sense for bonds bonds because those amounts can fluctuate on an annual basis and are very dependent on what's happening in the economy, what's happening in the implementation of your local bond program, et cetera. So what AB 699 is doing is it's saying if you want to keep reporting that information on the ballot label, great, you can do that. But if you'd like to take an alternate path, that is available. And on that ballot label, you would direct voters to their voter information guide, to that measure information statement, the tax rate statement that's in there, which provides more detail about the potential costs of that type of measure. And then AB 699 also provides some additional pieces of information that would be required in that measure information statement. Ian mentioned one of the bills that he talked about was that CalShape bill was having a little bit of a tough time in committee. This one is too. So some concerns by the chair in the Assembly Elections Committee. And so she and the author, who is Assembly Member Stephanie from San Francisco, are talking and trying to work through those concerns. So the bill is scheduled to be heard in Elections Committee next Wednesday. That'll be that last opportunity to move through to continue moving in this year. So fingers crossed that we'll see the momentum and the progress on that important bill. And with that, I will hand it back to Brooke. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca and Ian. That was a lot of great information. One thing, I just want to confirm, Rebecca, all of you talked about a lot of bills, and I was trying to write quickly, but a lot of this information has been shared out through Cash, and you guys are giving the updates as you get the information, because I know like the Civic Center one, the AB 503 is really critical for me, so I'm trying to stay on track with that. So confirm that that's all on the Cash website or coming out from Cash through emails.
That's a great question, Brooke. So we did a pretty comprehensive update a few weeks ago that's on the Cash website that outlines all of our priority bills. So I think that there were 9 bills in that update. It's in plain language. It's not in sort of the gobbledygook speak that spits out of our systems. Yes, there are legislative tracking systems. So we put it into words that we can understand. And that narrative is on the Cash website. The other thing that we like to do is just on a monthly basis in these meetings, provide an update maybe on something that's not our top priority, like those workforce housing bills, and just let folks know that that's happening. One thing that I can do, Brooke, is because we went through so many bill numbers, I can pop into the chat the ones that I talked about so people can also do their own research on those if they like. Ian, if you've got a few minutes, maybe you can do the same because we get a lot of questions about those bill numbers too. And then we will continue to update at the gates in the legislative process. So once we get through that appropriations committee, that'd be a good time for us to do another update in writing to our members so that you know where we are with the bills.
Wonderful, thank you. I don't see any questions for you both in the chat box, so I think you're good, but Ian's hang tight because you're up next and you're going to do the School Energy Coalition update.
Thank you. I was doing the chat. I forgot about that. Yes. So you know the School Energy Coalition focuses obviously on it's all in the title. So they have a lot on their plate this year, a fair amount of bills they're following, but one I wanted to highlight for you, and that's AB 942 by Calderon. And this has to do with this same general issue. We've been seeing a lot of activity in bills and budget and discussions about basically how much does solar pay schools back for, right? The NEEM issue more broadly, right? We have 1, 2, and 3 now, and some other ones. There is another bill this year, 942, and what it does is it reduces contracts signed under NEEM 1 and NEEM 2. The previous rule there was that those could go for 20 years, and then it would have to upgrade into the 20. This one reduces that 20 years to 10 years, and so it's going to force NEEM 1 and 2 users into the much more expensive situation than they were in before. So again, and there was a lot of opposition, school opposition to this bill. Again, Cash is opposed, CASBO is opposed, School Energy Coalition, obviously the San Diego Unified School District, Los Angeles Unified School District, as well as the Alameda County Office of Education. So just wanted to let you know in terms of that's one of the biggest bills that SEC is following. And again, to highlight this issue, affordability, as well in energy issues in particular. This is even bigger than CalShape. CalShape is a significant challenge, right? But it's a grant program focused on a certain piece. This one, and what schools get paid back or don't, and at what rate, is a very significant issue, particularly as we know there's a lot of requirements for photovoltaics, battery storage, things related to the green green code and energy code and other codes. So we'll follow that one very closely. Also up in committee next week, and SEC will report out as to what happens with this bill. I will say that whatever happens with this bill, the one good thing is that the coalition to oppose this types of policy has become much stronger and broader in the last couple of years. Frankly, it's had to because of these bills and these policy issues that are being discussed. But so stay tuned on this one. This is the type of legislation going forward that can affect pretty much everybody. So keep your ear to the ground. We certainly will do the same. Thank you.
All right. All right, Ann, I think you're up next for the federal network as well. There we go.
Oh, yeah, man. Okay, yes. Thank you. Nothing new in terms of the federal network. I'll just remind we had good meetings at the in Palm Springs at our annual conference, and then a week later we went back to DC, and we did over 20 meetings with legislative staff, agencies, frankly, whoever we could get meetings with, supporting school facilities at the federal level. We know there's a lot of uncertainty there, but we're going to keep going. We plant seeds. That's our approach to it, and we're in it for the long run. One of the pieces, though, that's more specific is helping to get support and educate local folks, California folks of both parties, to let them know how important school facilities issues are. Because again, it used to be before the federal network and other advocacy efforts that schools were not considered part of infrastructure. And that's one of the things that we're doing. We think there are, and we're making these cases. So we'll continue to do that. We do a monthly Zoom where we talk about updates from our lobbyists, as well as other important pieces, and then planning for our trip likely in the fall back to DC. So that's all for now, but keep your eyes, if you're interested in the issues, keep your eyes out for that Zoom. It's pretty good information given out in about half an hour. So thanks, Brooke.
Ian, that Zoom invite goes out to all the CASH members, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, that's right. And we'll post it on there as well to try to get more folks on that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Sure.
All right. We'll move on to the next slide. And I believe that's me. Yeah. So we're gonna I want to just talk. Cash is excited. We have the spring mini conference that'll be held in Long Beach at the Long Beach Marriott Hotel on Thursday, May 22nd from 8 to 3 o'clock. The registration is now open on the CASH website if you're interested. So far, we have a pretty decent turnout, so I'm excited to see how many people attend this. The agenda is really going to focus on discussing the status of Prop 2 and really going into some of those stakeholder meeting questions that have been coming out. They'll look at the current legislation and bills that may impact schools. They'll go over that. John Barrissey will be providing an economic update for 25-26. That should be an interesting little part of the workshop. And then there will be a panel that will be discussing and utilizing local bond dollars and construction costs. I know with the tariffs, that's going to be interesting. Not only that, but there'll be a lot of conversations around all of that. And then following up, there will be a conversation about recent wildfires and natural disaster preparedness. So Cash, that's the spring mini conference in Long Beach Marriott Hotel. All right, next slide, please. And I'm excited to share with you the fall conference. Please save the date. The conference will be held at a new location. If you guys all notice in the picture, that's not our normal place that we're usually at, but we will be at the Hyatt Regency in Irvine from October 15th through the 17th. Online registration will be available on the Cash website this summer, so please keep your eyes open for that email that comes out. Cash staff is currently working on the agenda, and I can share that you won't want to miss this event. There's going to be some changes that will be in the agenda. On Wednesday of the event, of the conference, our first day will be focused on professional development. And on Thursday, we will have our economic forecaster, followed by current and relevant events impacting school facilities. And then Friday, we will complete with our local agency updates. So this will be a great event. Please save the date, October 15th through 17th at the Hyatt Regency in Irvine. Next slide, please. All right. So please mark your calendars for the 47th annual conference. It feels like we just had the last one, but yes, we started planning for the next one. And it will be held on February 25th through the 27th in Sacramento. We'll be going back to Sacramento this year. The deadline we're taking a call for nominations for proposals and for strand committees. We're about 3 weeks away, and that is due on May 18th, Friday, May 18th, where we are asking for your proposals for the workshops and strand committee co-chairs. We only have 3 weeks, so if you haven't submitted your workshop proposals yet, please get started on those. The workshops will be a blind submission like they were done last year. This was positive comments that we received from everyone from the last conference, and I think we can all agree that the workshops were a little bit different than what we've seen in the past. So excited for the blind submission. And for those of you that want to get more involved and be a part of selecting the workshops, please submit to be a strand committee co-chair. This is a great opportunity. It's not only to provide you to be a part of developing the workshops, but you will also get to work alongside some strand committee chairs that have done a great job in the past years, and they are great people to work with. So I am chairing up the annual conference. You also get involved with that. You'll get to work alongside me. So please submit your applications for the strand committee chairs. You can visit the Cash website to submit your proposals and nominations. And the next annual planning conference committee meeting will be on Wednesday, May 28th. All right, next slide. And then we will close this out. If you have any upcoming RFP or RFQs or job openings at your district, please utilize the Cash Professional Opportunities Job Board to review a wider and more diverse audience. Cash members can log into the Cash website and post their job on the RFP website. All right, next slide. This is our last. All right, mark your calendars. The next Cash Day will be held both in person at the Capitol Event Center in Sacramento and virtually on Wednesday, May 28th from 11 to 12:15. This is a great time for people to come up and network and connect. So if you would like to come in person, all of Cash board and Cash staff will be there, and an opportunity to really run some of these questions by all of us to help support you. So with that being, I'm going to just check the chat box to see if there are any questions. I see that the bills were put in there, and then save the dates and all of that. So I don't see any questions in the chat box. All right, thank you, everyone.